I just had a conversation with my friend today who is also a comrade, and we talked about Product 2025, Chapel Roan, socio-political media literacy, and the ongoing threat of imperialistic violence enacted by the US and how it is so important to articulate the specifics of these things. Hopefully, this is legible for people because I'm really feeling a lot. And a lot of it is still tied to Springfield, Ohio. It's still tied to how the fears around Project 2025 is causing so many people to fearmonger and then push people towards Kamala Harris. We live in this socio-political environment where people still believe that politicians are actually here to help us. Politicians are actually here to help us. It's a fucking lie. I will say it again. Politicians operate just like police officers. They will lie to you to get what they want in terms of the state's values. The problem isn't Product 2025, it's our lack of capacity to resist, because that's really what so many things come down to for me. I understand the existential threat of Product 2025 as people state it, but I also don't understand how people can name that as an existential threat, but not name all of the other forms of state violence as an existential threat just as clearly, because it doesn't as materially affect them because they don't see it as a danger. It hasn't been articulated to them as a danger. So let's dive into it. I watched the political event that Oprah Winfrey hosted in favor of Kamala Harris, where like Harris showed up and they had all these different people talk, and it was very emotional, and they had a child survivor of one of these school pew pew events, and I honestly found myself sitting down through that and being like, wow, this is really emotional, and I'm glad so many things are being acknowledged. And then I just was like, wait, Kamala Harris is literally a part of a government that funds war and genocide and is standing by Israel's right to defend itself and to SA people and to literally like destroy entire generations of families, to displace entire generations of people. So why is Oprah what? And then I kind of came back to reality. It wasn't like I was really swayed, but I came back to reality and I was like, oh yeah, Oprah is a part of the billionaire elite, and so is Kamala Harris. And the Black elite have to corroborate each other's narratives around change. The whole notion that Kamala Harris is building this campaign where we're not going back, we're not going back, we're not going back, like we need to have our voting rights, we're not going back. I wonder if for some Black people like the elite, does not going back just mean that we become a part of white supremacy? Does it mean that we become a tool of capitalism, that we become a tool of the empire, that we stand by as billions of dollars is being funneled into wars and the torture and genocide of people in other nations? If that is our definition of not going back, what is going forward? What is going forward as people that are willing to assimilate into the Black elite and the way that they corroborate white supremacy, imperialism, hegemony, etc.?
So what I'm hearing, because I want to make sure I clarify before I respond to it, is that because Kamala is a Black woman and she's running as a Black woman and she's not speaking out against things that you want her to, she's using her Black womanhood to
power and Black excellence, and it was weaponized in the Obama presidency. But so let me.
Could it be something else?
Please
could it
educate me.
Could it be? I know her.
Yes. Could
it be that she is someone who listens to voices on all sides? Could it be that when the opportunity, you can turn your head, but I've been in the room.
The reason that this needs to be brought up is that when I see so much of what the Republicans are saying versus the Democrats are saying, I've said this a lot of times online. You either have the overt fascism of the right and the right wing and the Republican Party, or you have these smoke screens of progress that are actually leading towards the fascistic tendencies of the right. What does it mean that the news is constantly saying, oh, we have the lowest number of migrant crossings in a number of years? It's because there are more punitive measures that make it more difficult for people to find refugee status. 20,000 Haitian immigrants were put in Springfield, Ohio, and then given next to no resources in a community where the economy was already kind of destabilized and people are looking for jobs. It's difficult for people to buy homes. When the state does not step in, division can be sown, disinformation can occur, and people that are literally just there to work, to assimilate, to find their version of the American dream become the scapegoats and the recipient of extrajudicial and state violence. Why has it taken until now for the Springfield government to acknowledge on a larger level the lack of resources that has been offered to Haitian immigrants there? And why have Black people in Springfield, Ohio, gone to city councils and spewed xenophobic and fear mongering, and then later on will apologize? What information are we intaking? What is our understanding of the exact political context that this information is coming from? Who is becoming the scapegoats of particular kinds of violence? And who is willing to step in these particular kinds of violence, whether it be fascistic violence, state violence, police violence, any form of violence derived from the state, because the state will view its own violence as legitimate and then will view any violence in resistance to it as criminal, illegal, unpatriotic, whatever, instead of it being people resisting a system that is literally built on war and genocide.
Good morning, AIPAC. Good morning. What an honor. And I'm proud to say and be that among the many voices represented here, the California delegation is the largest and hopefully the loudest. There you go. I did what I often do when visiting a new country. I visited the highest court in the land. And as I toured Israel's Supreme Court, I was struck by the iconic architecture, which embodies Israel's founding principles of democracy and rule of law. It's why I became a prosecutor and personally prosecuted everything from low-level offenses to homicides. It's why I became San Francisco District Attorney and was later elected Attorney General of California, where I took on, where I took on transnational gangs, cyber criminals, and mortgage fraud. And that commitment to justice is why I ran to become a United States Senator from the great state of California. The point being to continue that fight. And a critical piece of my agenda is the fight to defend and strengthen our national security. As a member of both the Senate Intelligence Committee and Homeland Security Committee, I have a front row seat to these issues. And I am proud to stand strongly with America's allies, including Israel. Israel and the Jewish community will always be a priority for me.
I haven't really gone into detail about Product 2025 or explored it very much on this channel. Honestly, it's mainly because I've been annoyed around the fear-mongering around it. I understand that it's scary. I understand that the wish list is fucking horrible and disgusting. But I also understand that Democrats will sell out movements and throw people into prison. And people like Kamala Harris have been a part of corroborating a carceral system, even if they can pass certain measures that reduce recidivism. If you work for the state and you work for carcerality and you built a career out of that, you probably locked people up unjustly, and you've probably corroborated a logic that says that that is okay. Black people, as people that are products of immigration, as people that understand the very real racialized violence that the carceral system puts us through, to then go into that system and to help it by any means, to me, is a sign of evil and political compromise. And that is where I stand on at least Harris. Fear of Project 2025 isn't enough for me to run towards a candidate like Kamala Harris, which is what's interesting about like seeing the news and what everything one is talking about online. If Chaperone won't endorse a candidate, like that means that they're a Republican, like a queer person from the Midwest who didn't want to perform at the White House and actually wanted to perform Palestinian like poems is a Republican. Political engagement online is partially and largely turning into just another entertainment system. And when people in my last video, as I said, joke about memes and dance to xenophobic logic and make light of it, you're turning it into entertainment when it's actually becoming increasingly our political reality, which is why I want to spend a little bit of time in this video talking about Project 2025 and a bit of what it entails, because I think we do need to be specific about the violence and the wish list that it can produce, because this is a production of the right wing, and the right wing do have a stranglehold on a lot of things politically and media-wise and socially in this country. So let's dig into it. So there is an article from the BBC titled Product 2025, The Right-Wing Wish List for Another Trump Presidency. Read a few sections of it to give you an idea if folks out there aren't already aware of what Product 2025 entails so far. So the article reads, it's a 900-page policy wish list for the next Republican president, a proposal that would expand the presidential power and impose an ultra-conservative social vision. What you're going to hear tonight is a detailed and dangerous plan called Product 2025 the former president intends on implementing if he were elected again, Vice President Kamala Harris said early in the ABC News presidential debate. Donald Trump, who had recently disavowed the document, responded, I have nothing to do with Project 2025. Dozens of former Trump administration officials have, however, contributed to the think tank's proposals, providing Democrats with an attack line against the former president. The backlash against some of the more radical proposals in Project 2025, conceived by the Conservative Heritage Foundation think tank, has been intense. And then going on, it talks about the governmental changes that Project 2025 proposes. Project 2025 proposes that the entire federal bureaucracy, including independent agencies such as the Department of Justice, be placed under direct presidential control, a controversial idea known as unitary executive theory. In practice, that would streamline decision-making, allowing the president to directly implement policies in a number of areas. The proposals also call for eliminating job protections for thousands of government employees who could then be replaced by political appointees. The document labels the FBI a bloated, arrogant, increasingly lawless organization. It calls for drastic overhauls of this and several other federal agencies, as well as the complete elimination of the Department of Justice. I don't fuck with the government or the state as it stands, but to remove these departments that are there to perform checks and balances just shows you how fascistic the people surrounding Trump wish to be. And to call the FBI a bloated, arrogant, increasingly lawless organization, that's because the FBI has been targeting people within Trump's administration, holding them to task alongside the Department of Justice. But the FBI has also historically aided and abetted dismantling movements, targeting movements, performing all sorts of counterinsurgency, and even killing people.
This is 2337 West Monroe, described by police as a depot for Black Panther Party arms and ammunition. 14 State's Attorney's policemen, led by Sergeant Daniel Groth, found out indeed it was a depot for weapons. After a 15-minute gun battle that cost Illinois Black Panther Party Chairman Fred Hampton his life.
On the morning of December 4th, you're going to decide whether or not Fred Hampton and Mark Clark were the victims of premeditated murder.
They came with a murder on their mind, you see. Even if they wanted to take somebody to jail, it would be a simple matter of just shooting some tear gas in here to draw everybody out, right on.
Killing people that are considered unpatriotic or against whatever goal of the U.S. imperialism is. So it's just interesting that, like, when I hear the term unitary executive theory, like, I just got to bring this book back. I literally have to bring this book back. This fucking book. Read this fucking book. The way this book is breaking down so many of the things that I see in Project 2025 is beautiful, nuts, scary, also, like, deeply helpful for me in engaging in these conversations. And one thing that this book really delves into is how fascism necessitates that there be a leader who is considered almost godlike, considered mythic in their capacity to imbue a political truth that is beyond science or quantitative logic or even thinking. It's about emotion, it's about force, it's about violence. And think of what a Trump government would do if getting into office. But also think about what a Harris administration would do in terms of building cop cities, in terms of building a stronger border, and in terms of literally throwing movements under the bus. I think they're two sides of the same coin. Dimensions of abortion in Project 2025, there are about 200 of them, have sparked some of the most contentious debates. The document does not call for an outright nationwide abortion ban, and Trump says he would not sign such a law. We don't fucking trust him. However, it proposes withdrawing the abortion pill, the abortion pill mifepristone from the market and use existing but little enforced laws to stop the drug being sent through the post. And it goes on to say, more generally, the document suggests that the Department of Health and Human Services should maintain a biblically based social science reinforced definition of marriage and family. Does that mean I can't get it means I can't get gay married. It means I can't get gay married. It means I probably can't get gay married. This to me is just embarrassing because it means that people haven't resisted enough to the point that this wouldn't even be fucking possible. And I think that is what is also scary to me. And that's what I want to talk about in the later section of this video when I talk about like the internet and the pacification of memifying online and the glorification of politicians. It's wild. It's wild. Increased funding for a wall on the US-Mexican border, one of Trump's signature proposals in 2016, is proposed in the document. Product 2025 also proposes the dismantling of the Department of Homeland Security and combining it with other immigration enforcement units and other agencies, creating a much larger and more powerful border policing operation. Other proposals include eliminating visa categories for crime and human trafficking victims, eliminating and increasing fees on immigrants, and allowing fast-tracked applications for migrants who pay a premium. Not all of these details are repeated in the Republican Party platform, but the overall headlines are similar. The party is promising to implement the largest deportation program in American history. And what is very telling here is that even if Trump says that he doesn't endorse Project 2025, even if he wasn't a part of it, what has happened since he's talked all his crap about Springfield, Ohio? He's since said that he's willing to deport Haitians from that community. J.D. Vance has doubled down on his extremely violent, vulgar, xenophobic myths about Haitian immigrants, including saying that they've increased the number of HIV and AIDS in Springfield, Ohio. And if you read into the local news in Springfield, Ohio, you see the kind of kettle bomb of the fact that immigrants were brought there, weren't offered resources, that sort of destabilizes the already like fragile nature of the way that people in the US view immigrants, relate to xenophobia, and it activated a lot of fuckery, a lot of disinformation, and it led to someone in that community writing a post that they ended up apologizing about. The part of Project 2025 that is really, really scary to me as a child of immigrants is that it talks about denaturalization, which is essentially denaturalizing people that have come here and have found visas or green cards or citizenship. And I can only imagine what that would mean. For me, that would mean most people in my family would probably be up for denaturalization. And I don't even think it would stop there. I mean, there's also things in Project 2025 that talks about expanding ICE's capacity to go into people's homes, to reduce the number of reasons and regulations as to why they would be able to go into people's homes. And I think so much about how Israel and the Zionist state operates in terms of how it treats Palestinians, locking up thousands and thousands of children over the years, displacing people from their homes, inviting settlers in, inviting all kinds of state and extrajudicial violence onto Palestinians, and how this is just accepted because these people are considered less than human beings, if not citizens, people capable of having rights. And I do not put it past any of these policies or a Trump administration to say, like, you're a child of immigrants and you don't agree with the way our government operates, you're going back to the island, you're going back to here, you're going back to here. And the reason that this particularly pisses me off, and it makes me think about how disgusting it is that people are laughing to the Springfield, Ohio jokes online, is that when Trump won in 2016, my mother called me and said, why did I become a citizen for this? I immediately started going online. I was looking up how to become a Border Patrol agent. Granted, I did research it a lot, and then I realized that you, at some point, theoretically have to take a polygraph test. And I was like, depending on the questions they asked me, I'm not gonna pass. I disrupted a Bill Clinton speech in 2016. They're not gonna let me in. And it became that real for me because I thought, if the state is going to target my family or other people's families like mine, I want to be aware and I want to have the capacity to do something to resist unjust policies. And when people laugh online, when people make jokes about it, when people pacify it, it's just, to me, the same kind of people that will sit there when someone says some horrible stuff to an immigrant in public or talks down on someone's ability to speak English. Like, if you can find humor in xenophobia, I wonder what you will sit by and let happen. I wonder if you will actually stick up for Palestinians or people in Congo or people experiencing the ravages of US colonialism and imperialism in other parts of the world. Or will you just go online and joke about it because it's funny to you? the denaturalization thing, I think, is just, it is an expression of a very ongoing sentiment that has existed in the US forever and ever and ever. Some kind of immigrants are fine and some kind of immigrants are not. It's the immigrants that will assimilate and can speak perfect English and can contribute economically. That is the value that our country is saying that immigrants bring. It's not that they're human beings deserving of respect and autonomy and resources and dignity. It's saying you need to come here and contribute something by our standards, or else we're going to kick you out, or we're going to find it humorous enough when people talk shit on you to dance about it online. And that to me is just, it's deplorable. And it reduces my faith in most people's capacity that are dancing online to actually show up and resist and to do something. Or maybe they'll show up at the last minute when they realize how fucking serious things are. And honestly, if I'm at a protest and I see someone personally who's dancing online, they're gonna have problems with me. Should people be afraid of Project 2025, or should people be afraid that we exist in a political apparatus that makes Project 2025 even possible? That it makes it possible for the Democratic Party to parrot and puppet the language of the right in order to bring people from the center more to the left, while funding genocide and war. Project 2025 builds on the US's long history of state violence, particularly against marginalized communities, immigrant communities, Black, brown, poor, indigenous communities. And from a Black liberation perspective, this is not a new existential threat. It's a more explicit version of the oppression that has already been embedded in the US political system. What was COINTELPRO? What were the MOVE bombings? What happened in Flint, Michigan with water? What happened in Standing Rock? What is happening in communities all around the US where students are rising up and protesting a genocide and being kicked out of their housing, losing their student funding, losing their jobs, potentially being at risk to losing their degrees and their chance at a future through higher education? And I have to ask, is the US moving towards fascism, or are we simply witnessing an escalation of the long-standing imperialist tendencies that the US resorts to? And these policies fit into a broader framework, as I've mentioned in How the US is Fascist video. If you haven't seen it, you should watch it. It's a banger. I love it. I'm honestly so proud of that video. This framework builds into a larger process of global anti-Blackness, anti-Xenophobia sentiments, white hegemony and white supremacy, capitalism and colonization. The internet and social media literacy, or lack thereof, fits into this. If people can go online and for weeks on end laugh about the Springfield, Ohio situation while not reading articles or educating themselves on the specific context of what's happening there in their own communities, it means they can laugh at the next horrific xenophobic comment that is made, or they can laugh at the next number of rights that are taken away, or they can make light of the fact that Trump might win again, or Kamala's going to win, and cop cities are going to be built. If we can laugh as we descend into the slippery slope of fascism, how do we expect to save ourselves? And how do people that are laughing as this happen expect other people to have respect for them or want to save them? And this isn't to say that I think people are unforgivable or the jokes online are just all totally in bad faith. But I have a really, really real kind of demand. What is our boundary in line for laughing at, making light of, and finding lightness in state violence, xenophobic violence? What is the line? Is the line when Project 2025 is officially launched and the government's going to put out a news broadcast and say, it's happening, and people are actually going to go out into the streets and join organizations and resist? No, those same people laughing online are just going to be online, talking to their screen, making jokes about it, and probably hiding in their houses while the ICE is going in and going into people's houses and ripping people out and putting them on buses and shipping them out, or worse. What is the line? What is the line? How does the way that we consume media, particularly through memes and political celebrity culture, prevent us from fully understanding the stakes of this current political moment? Social media as a tool for the political elite to engage with us, it's blurring the lines. It's the reason that there's been so much talk about the fact that at this most recent DNC, there were a lot more influencers and live streamers and internet people than there were mainstream journalists. And it's a complicated conversation to talk about, but I think essentially what a lot of it distills down to is that with the more that we engage in the internet and social media, the more people gain a distrust of mainstream media, the more people rely on content and the addictiveness of it to to help us work through the socio-political reality that we're existing in. And the fact that politicians can participate in this online rat race and have likes and follows and people that are younger than them, like leading their social media campaigns and helping them do dances and helping them do live streams and podcasts and becoming political pundits. It becomes this very weird space where I question, are we engaging in political activity? Are we engaging in organizing and mass mobilization? Are we engaging in social media platforms to prop up the elite and help them attain their platforms and help them attain power? When essentially, when we engage online, we have next to no power in terms of these social media corporations. We can't really hold them accountable for the disinformation that they benefit from in terms of the algorithm and advertising and profiting and rage farming. And when politicians begin to engage in this, it becomes this very, very dangerous game where we reduce politics to the spectacle of personality, where if someone can be charismatic like Trump, they can gain a following. If someone can be endearing and represent what every Black woman or every immigrant wants to be in terms of being a part of the American dream, you support Kamala. But if you really question their policies on immigration, on militarization, on genocide, on war profiting, on their ability to be conscientious objectors to the imperialistic violence that the US deploys, one, it's not really possible because they go into the system to work for it. And two, that would mean that they would lose their funding. How much money did Biden receive from AIPAC that was rolled over to Kamala Harris's campaign? How many AIPAC events has Kamala Harris spoken at? And why would we expect any different people that are being glorified and told that they are saving us? They are the reason that we're not turning back. Kamala Harris is the reason that Black people aren't going to sit in the back of the bus again. They're just going to be living in cities where cops are even more militarized and can beat you up at a protest. And then you'll probably catch some RICO charges. That's not going back. When we look at the glorifying of politicians and the way that internet culture kind of pacifies us into political complicity, we can dive into how fascism will not always look like the Hollywood villain, but will be incremental, legalized, and normalized through media, especially when both parties use immigrants as scapegoats. Look at what Kamala Harris says about the fact that we need a stronger border. If you're being vague about something, it probably means that you want to reach towards either side of the aisle and you want the capacity to pass things that look more progressive, and you want to be able to pass things that literally demonize immigrants. Even though, Harris, you literally are the product of an immigrant family. To me, it's just like, that's also why I have even less respect for them. I'm like, you're a product of an immigrant family and you get to this position. I wonder what you had to compromise ethically. I wonder. With all of this in mind, with all of the odds stacked against us, with so many things up against us, like, it shouldn't just be Project 2025 is horrible, so vote for Kamala Harris. No, that is not the most logical conclusion I draw here. I encourage other people to draw more complex conclusions, more nuanced conclusions. You can vote third party. You can vote intensely on a local level. You can show up to your city council. You can join organizations that offer mutual aid and protect immigrant communities and offer resources. You can go towards anti-fascist work. You can go towards work that help people that are without housing. You can go towards work that helps protect trans communities, reproductive rights. There are so many different iterations of political mobilization that are possible, but it starts with the question, how do we build the collective belief that resistance is not only possible, but essential in the fight against imperialism and white supremacy? And what does Black resistance to empire look like in a world dominated by global capitalism and militarization? For enslaved Blacks, for enslaved Africans, when they were on those fucking slave fields and they ran into the marshes and they braided their hair to make maps, and they found ways of operating within the Underground Railroad, and they found ways to hide in the marshes and the woods for weeks on end. When they went towards freedom, it was not with the understanding that it was totally certain that they would get to the north, or that they would achieve autonomy, or that they would get to where they needed to go. It was with the belief that where they were going, the possibility of where they were going was way better than the current reality. And this to me is the core of what I believe and where I come from and what I encourage in most political spaces I'm in, I don't believe that we should resist with the probability that we're going to win, with demanding that we're going to win. Like, this is the strategy that is going to help us win. I don't think there's just one strategy. I don't think there's any one certain outcome in terms of liberation or resistance. I think this country is bought for with blood and genocide and imperialism, and to unravel ourselves from that will look ugly and messy and scary. But the pursuit of a better world, of a better forever, is so much more beautiful than anything that we can imagine right now. The fact that my parents immigrated to this country and built lives for themselves, were able to send me to school, were able to fight to raise me in neighborhoods that were rough, that with all of the problems that my home life and my family life brought, all of the beauty of all of the terror and violence and subjugation that people in my family, especially women, have survived, all of that does not mean that I should fold towards the narrative of political progress that is fed to me by either Trump or Harris or the Democrats or Republicans or people that are scared of state-sanctioned violence. I mean, the Black existence is about surviving state-sanctioned violence. And so to me, to tell people that we need to work towards having a lesser evil, or we need to have a weaker adversary, or Product 2025 is the worst existential threat. The worst existential threat that we can have is that we don't activate our capacity for militant resistance and change, that we allow the state or racists or xenophobes or bigots or people online to determine what we believe is politically possible and viable and necessary in the face of evil and violence and bigotry. And we have a right to resist on a fundamental human level. When we look at how the Vietnamese people resisted the American war, when we look at how Palestinians are resisting the ongoing genocide enacted by Zionism in the state of Israel, we see how important it is to fight regardless of the outcome. Because I do believe that the elite typically dictate history, but even our chance at a future, at survival, at something that is better than this is based on our capacity now to say what we're being offered is not enough. And we need to imagine other ways. We need to have the courage to say that this is not right and something has to change. And that can be a small thing, it can be a big thing, and it can involve so many things. I mean, think about Frantz Fanon, think about Assata Shakur, think of Kwame Ture, how Assata Shakur speaks about in her autobiography that revolution is a science. It's something that should be studied. It's something that has parts, it has processes. And those processes are things that we deserve to dedicate our lives, or at least major portions of our lives, to committing to. And that is not some light thing. It's not something to go online and joke about and ha ha he he make fun of xenophobic violence. It's here. It's going to happen. And what are you going to do about it? And I end this video with a series of questions. If we understand that the state thrives on our pacification, what are we willing to sacrifice in order to resist? How do we build a movement that not only fights fascism in the US, but also stands in solidarity with global struggles against imperialism? In a world where both political parties perpetuate violence, state-sanctioned violence, what would a true vision of liberation look like that escapes this constant hamster wheel of running around back and forth, running around back and forth, running around back and forth? What would that look like? I think for me, it would look like, maybe to begin with, free housing, police-free zones. Just saying. And if state violence is normalized, how do we reawaken our belief that we or others do not deserve that violence? How do we resist that violence? Those are questions. Those are questions for you. Those are questions for me too. But that's what I'm spending my life doing. I'm spending my life trying to figure out all these answers through writing, through teaching, through organizing, through trying to be a good person, through trying to tap into my righteous anger. And I encourage everyone to do so. Thank you for watching another video on my channel. If you want to be notified when videos go up right away, click that notify button. If you have friends that you want to engage with these topics about, consider sending them this video, consider using it as a conversation tool. I believe that in the bare minimum, our political reality begins to change when we make it a reality in our lives. Talk to people, have conversations with them. You'll probably find out that maybe some of your friends are really radical and ready and down, and maybe some of your friends are probably fucking racist and want to laugh about this shit. And that should be a problem for you. And you won't find out unless you actually talk to people. Stay woke, like, comment, and subscribe. Consider buying a copy of my book. And I'll see you later. I'm going to take a nap.
My grandma was in the hospital already.